ask.
I just prefer to be called as Shane. So allow me to share my screen for my presentation. So I'm just going to ask if is everyone seeing my monitor or my screen?
No, it's it. I can see it.
Okay, thank you, Professor. My research is about the new normal research approaches of global governance in ASEAN. And this is my abstract presentation, and I'll be sharing with you the ways forward parts of this abstract research. So the background of the research is that since here in the pandemic, during the outbreak of the pandemic in January of 2020, it is the Philippines who is the first who is among the countries who have experienced the wrath of the pandemic, who experienced not just a loss or an issue in the public health, but it also affected the global economy. So during the outbreak, the attention on the environmental issues in the Southeast Asia became limited, as the shift to cooperative attention between among ASEAN countries have prioritized the immediate response to global health. And in line with that, according to the United Nations Development Program in 2019, that the climate change issues is one of the most timely issue that among all countries, not just in ASEAN or not just limited in ASEAN, is affected. In Southeast Asia, to define its geographic positions, it falls within the large tropical cyclone throughout the year. And apart from that, Southeast Asia or in the ASEAN region, its first livelihood comes about the agriculture or the agri-industries or agribusiness, which we know that agriculture is highly affected by the environment and the natural resources. And because of the threats of the COVID-19, the attention from giving immediate responses on the global governance to mitigate environmental issues became limited. Actually, it became ignored. Here in the country where I'm currently based or I'm living in the Philippines, environment has been greatly ignored, not just during the pandemic, but pre-pandemic times. Environment has been one of the least priorities that is being observed as a scholar or as a student that we are currently seeing as a challenge here in the Philippines. And by going into the international level or in the regional level in ASEAN, we can also assess objectively through this research that the environment and the natural resources are one of the least priorities in the global governance. Thus, a new and better normal research approach is highly needed to reform the global governance of ASEAN to meet the environmental needs in the region that is forced to be ignored due to the demand of a stronger public health attention during the COVID-19. I am repeating, it is forced, not intentional, to be ignored due to the demand of strengthening the public health sector during the COVID-19. Actually, when the outbreak of the pandemic have hit here in the region, it's not just about public health. We are all familiar with the economic crisis, with the economic inflation, the economic depression that is being experienced by the ASEAN countries, mostly the developing countries. And even in developed countries, they are experiencing economic threats. So thus, we can see that it is not just about public health that is being strengthened by the global governance in ASEAN, but also the cooperation for economic reform because of the depressions that our economy have experienced. But then, we must not leave alone the environmental issues because at the end of the day, environmental issues like climate change and food insecurity are all part of the development discourse. And when we say development discourse, we know that it is in line with the threats to humanities. Because we can see with the development, it is a threat to humanity. What about flooding? During the pandemic in 2020, here in the Philippines and other parts of the ASEAN, there are a lot of floods that happens. One of the example here in the Philippines to introduce with you our international friends or international scholars is the Typhoon Ulysses. And with that typhoon Ulysses, it became a threat to the Philippines, where we can see that it is obviously environmental issues has been ignored because of the vast focus on strengthening the public health and reforming the economy. So this problem of this study that we can see mainly is that we can observe that the limited dialogue on mitigating the existing global environmental issues such as climate change during the pandemic have worsened the environment in the Southeast Asian regions. Hence, a solution for that problem is a stronger call for environmental advocates, academics, and even green groups such as the green movements, the environmental movements, social movements, have appealed for stronger policies and strategies for global environment of ASEAN integrations. And just to introduce you with this research, it is actually really inspired to empower the new normal research. And the methods that is being used is through content analysis, whereas such archival documents, news headlines from verified sources, and web content from ASEAN and developmental institutions such as the World Bank, ASEAN Development Bank are collected and consolidated to analyze the results of these studies. In these studies, it tried to empower the voices that has been verified or consolidated by the verified environmental or developmental institutions to check and to huddle them up in their call for a stronger and better new normal research that will help in creating or crafting policies and strategies to strengthen the global environmental governance in the ASEAN region. And now here, as we can come up to the ways forward that is being discussed in the paper, we can see that really there is a limited dialogue on mitigating the existing global environmental issues during the pandemic, which worsened the environment in the Southeast Asian regions. So, the ASEAN global governance have anchored their actions to implement new normal research approaches for global environmental governance through their existing compliance on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is ought to be targeted or to be achieved by the year 2030, because we know that we have the 2030 target year or the 2030 goals. And through maximizing the globalization in the use of advanced technology for greener ecology. So the ASEAN's response for a better and new normal research approaches to strengthen the global environmental governance is that they will maximize the use or their compliance on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we have a lot of environmental targets or environmental goals in the UN SDG, such as the SDG 13, the climate action, the renewable and responsible consumption of renewable gases. And we also have the life below waters when it comes to the water governance. And as well, we have the life on land. So the ASEAN have thought of just maximizing their target goals in the UN SDG as part of strengthening the new normal research approaches for environmental governance. And what does ASEAN tries to do about this is that through the research that they will gather and consolidate in the new normal research of how to strengthen, how to immediately or how to have feasible policies and strategies in compliance to the UN SDG. In that way, they can both contribute to the new and better normal research, and as well, they can maximize the proper use of globalization in advancing the technology for a greener ecology. So as a result, they can help in both developing a new and better normal research and as well help in strengthening the global environmental responses. So the new normal research also suggests a strong recognition to not limit COVID-19 researchers from the hard sciences only, but also to recognize equally among the social sciences research, since humans faces both threats equally, not just in health, but also in environment that also affects the world economy, which global governance plays a key role. So in a mainstream or in a common idea, it is just an assumption that the responses for environment or even global environmental government, that the hard sciences, the scientists, those who are experts in the natural sciences, are the only ones who are appropriate and credible to create strategies and policies to mitigate environmental issues. But then, the new and better normal research suggests that we include also those among us who are in the humanities and social sciences, because we both faces threats equally on health and on environment. So it is the fusion between and among the hard sciences scholars and as well as the social sciences and humanities scholars in order to form a fusion to better mitigate these environmental issues that the ASEAN has been facing during the pandemic. And in terms of new normal researchers, a transition of a new and better normal research is highly demanded for the approaches on global environmental governance, as research and university academics in the region led to abandon old normal ways in mitigating environmental issues and adopt a new feasible and better normal deal during the pandemic. So about that, abandoning the old normal ways where research is not prioritized, research is not being seen as a feasible solution to mitigate environmental issues because we are always leaning towards a hard sciences approaches on the practical ways and in the tangible ways. So this research it is also used to better let us understand the responses of ASEAN through global environmental governance through the manifestations of the green theory of international relations. And when we say the green theory of international relations, it is the theory of mitigating environmental issues through transcending cross boundaries. The study's analysis on ASEAN's new and better normal research response to redefine the feasible strategies in mitigating environmental issues, focusing on the role of the academics. So this research have empowered the role of academics in both the social sciences and by not leaving behind the ideas and the expertise of those in the hard sciences. After all, it is the fusion of both hard sciences and social sciences in order to promote a new and better normal research by mitigating the COVID-19 issues on the environment. And as a result, COVID-19 become also a turning point.
1 minute left.
Okay, for ASEAN countries to improve strategies on the environmental governance. Hence, ASEAN's academic relations for new and better normal research approaches calls for development. And after all, to wrap up the presentation of the abstract, it is the social sciences disciplines like political science, international relations will get in board to be the architects of the policy making to mitigate environmental issues amidst COVID-19 in the region, as both fusion and tandem of the hard sciences and the social sciences will work together in order to better mitigate the environmental issues amidst the COVID-19 in the Southeast Asian region as a call for a better and new normal research. So thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions and concerns about the study, you may feel free to do so. Thank you. And thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.